is Cycle 1, Week 23 Science, and we're going to be studying rock structure identification. And we are going to be looking at rocks and the rock cycle. We're going to discover the 3 types of rocks and how they're formed, and we're actually going to make a model of that so that the kids can see how this works in class. So our question or our purpose today is to observe rocks and try to identify them. We're going to go over the differences between sedimentary, metamorphic, and igneous rocks. And we're going to discuss the look, feel, and type of each rock. So we really want them to be observing and investigating today. So what have we already learned? There's a great video. I have it on here. It's called Be a Rock Detective. It's silly, but it's very informative. Short. It's about 4 minutes long. Or you can just read to them. Either way, whatever works best for your class. Both of them are there. And all the information, I just went ahead and listed it here so that in case you're not a geologist, it's right here for you. I wrote out some questions, and I also wrote the answers, like how are rocks formed, what are the layers of the geosphere that contains rocks, what do we notice about the rocks, what do they look like, how do they feel. So at the beginning of the lesson, just go ahead and show the kids the rocks. Don't necessarily pass them out or anything. We're just going to have them looking at it in a more general sense. We'll get to the specifics later. So for our hypothesis or question, we're going to see if we can figure out how to make a model of the rock cycle using candy. And we're going to ask them, do you think that's possible? And some might say, no, we can't do that, because you can talk about rock cycles happen over a long period of time in huge areas of land. Can we do that in our classroom using just candy? And then we also need to talk about, or ask them, what do they think we can learn by studying rocks? Like, why do people study rocks? And so you can have them talk about some different jobs that might need to know about different kinds of rocks and why that's important. That'd be a fun time to bring it up when we're talking about our hypothesis and questioning today, because we're not actually going through the scientific method in the same way that we do for others. This is more of an investigation. So for our experiment or our procedure today, for our materials, we need our science journals, we need our rock samples that will be provided for you, we need a lab sheet. Pencils, colored pencils might be fun for this one so that they can kind of draw on some colors. You'll have paper plates and some Starburst candy and foil. We'll also need some knives, or I found scissors work really well, and I think that would be safer for the kids for cutting. So if you just pull out your scissors from your art bins, I'll text the night before to make sure to remember to pull those out. But just a few scissors would, I think, be great. So for the procedures, we're going to tell the kids before we start that we're not going to eat the candy today. I'll probably have enough left over that you can give them one at the end. But just say, this is a science experiment, so we're not going to eat it, and because our hands are not clean and we're going to be touching it, we're going to all be in it. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to unwrap 3 Starburst candy, and each student can do that because it's all written down here what to do. And so they'll unwrap it and have it on their plate, and we're going to say that these represent rocks and sediments. So we're going to have them cut them up into little pieces like this, and they're going to be sitting here on their plate. So this is just 3 Starbursts, and they're cut up. And so we're going to have them on their lab sheet then record what they see. So they'll draw little pictures, and we're going to say, what do these represent? And we're going to tell them this represents sediment. So the sediment are the pieces of rock what's inside of a rock, and this will be what forms our rock structure. Would be kind of fun maybe to add things like marshmallows and stuff like that. So if I think about it, I'll add some other things. You could get really fancy with this if they wanted to try it again at home. And maybe we'll just keep it simple, and you could say, if you wanted to try this at home, you could add other candies to it as well, because when you look in rocks, you can see all different colors of things in there. So there's always something you can add. Then we're going to have the kids gently push and squeeze their sediments together and draw what they see below. So we're literally going to have them pick them up and squeeze them together. And it takes a little bit to work it, but I figured you can kind of be talking through some of the questions, and they'll work it, and it's candy, so they'll love playing with it. So we're going to have them squish it together like this, and they're going to see that this now forms a unit, but you can still see all the pieces in it. So this is the next form of rock. This is going to be a sedimentary rock. So before we had sediments, now we have a sedimentary rock. And sedimentary rock, you can tell them, might form in like pieces like this, or it could be in layers. So you may want to also just get 3 Starbursts to show them and just squish them together, because that can also be a sedimentary rock that forms in layers. The next thing you'll do is so they'll draw that after now they'll take the rock and wrap it up in foil, and we're going to add pressure. We're going to put a big textbook on it, or they can squeeze in their hands if they're super strong boys, and we're going to use the heat from our hands to warm it up. So metamorphic rocks have heat and pressure added. So they'll need to do this for about a minute of heat and pressure, and that will change it into a different looking structure. And they'll just kind of dig it out of here. And it will look a bit different. You'll start to be able to see, and I may give parchment paper instead of foil so that we're not digging the foil off. I might just use little pieces of parchment paper. Or wax paper even might work. Yeah, so anyway, you'll be able to see that it's different now. It's flat. You can still see the pieces of sediment in it, but it's changed. Okay, and then the next thing that we're gonna do, and you know why I think we won't use foil, because this can't go in the microwave, it has this. So the next thing that they're gonna do is, I'm not gonna do it for you in the video, is we're gonna have them all put their things on a paper plate, and we're gonna have a mom run down to the kitchen, and they're gonna microwave it for 45 seconds. And what they're gonna see when they come back is, this has now changed from a metamorphic rock. We're completely melting it and then cooling it, and that is what makes an igneous rock. And so they're gonna get to see all 3 types of rock and journal those on their lab sheet. So this will come back and it will look kind of like a puddle, but you'll be able to see some different color formations, but after it cools, they can actually pick it up again because of the starburst and how the sugar crystals, but you don't have to say that. But so they'll be able to see all the 3 different kinds of rocks then. So once we get through all of that, while the mom is off with their igneous rocks that will be coming back as igneous rocks, go ahead and just continue with the experiment. We don't want to wait. It might take them, 5 minutes by the time they walk down there and come back. So then we'll move on to showing actual rock samples. And we have the 3 different kinds of rock. There's 3 of each. So we're going to observe them. We're going to use magnifying glasses. We have a rock structure identification sheet. I'm just going to give one of these per tutor, and you can go ahead and just have them draw a quick grid. They're probably going to have time to do like 1 or 2 of these. So just a quick grid in their science journals for the bigs, and they can write name, type, look, feel, or picture. And so I think I'll just have them choose 1 or 2 that they want to do. And so they'll pick up, they'll pick up sandstone, and they'll write sandstone, what type of rock it is, and if you need help, you'll have a cheat sheet for which type of rock it is. And we'll talk about how was that similar to our candy representation and what is different about it. Because obviously we want to talk to them about that a model is not the exact thing. It's a smaller version of what's going outside and large. It's a smaller version that we can see and touch and feel. And so then I have analysis and results and conclusions on here as well. I have some pictures that are printed out that you can see along the way, especially for the littles, just to see it more visual. And then we're going to talk for our conclusion why it's called a cycle. We're going to talk about how this happens again. Once you get an igneous rock and it gets beaten around, it changes back into sediment, and that turns into rocks again. And so you can show how this keeps going over and over again, and how God in creation worked it so that once it was done, igneous, it's not like, oh, that rock's done. It keeps going. It's a cycle that keeps continuing. And you can connect it to the water cycle a little bit if they've studied that a little bit. And this is just another picture that shows what happens with magma and the rock cycle as well. And I have a devotional that talks about what happens and using self-control, and how magma is like when we get really upset inside, and then it just all of a sudden we blow and get upset and mad, and what we should do instead, what God's word says. So I'll include that as well. So that day I will bring you paper plates, starbursts, and anything else you need for that, but everything else will be provided for you ahead of time. So that's about it.